A government of laws, not a government of man. That is what we all aspire to be as a democracy in the modern world. Good evening and welcome. This is Face the Nation. And our topic of discussion today is checks and balances in Sri Lanka's democracy. There's much to discuss given the change in the government, the current changes that the country is experiencing as a whole, and of course, Sri Lanka's aspiration to become a developed country, a better country for each and every one of us. And to discuss these matters and much more, we've got, of course, an expert panel who are well versed in the politics of Sri Lanka. Starting off, we've got Barath Arullsamy from the Democratic People's Front. Thank you very much, Barath, for accepting our invitation and attending today's program. We've also got Lihini Fernando from the Samagi Jana Balawegaya, no stranger to the show. Thank you very much, Lihini, for coming on our show this evening. We've also got Dimitra Abeysekara representing the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna. Thank you very much, Dimitra. An attorney at law, of course, as well. Thank you for accepting our invitation and joining our show today. So, starting things off, Barath, now, of course, your leader is a representative in Parliament, and of course, the DPF is aligned with the Samagi Jana Balawegaya and part of the opposition. Now, when we speak of checks and balances in Sri Lanka's democracy, one recurring topic has always been that only a certain class in Sri Lanka have the opportunity to rule, to govern, and a lot of other people are just cut off from that entire democratic process in Sri Lanka. Now, we see recently the leader of your party, Mano Ganeshan, coming out and making a statement saying that the next presidential election, the 2029 presidential election, when it does come, it will be Sajith Premadasa that will be contesting from the Samagi Jana Balawegaya, and he made this clear, and that Sajith Premadasa himself made this statement at a meeting of the leaders of the Samagi Jana Sandhana. Now, the leader of your party really said that when questioned on what is your opinion on this matter, he said, well, we don't really have an opinion on that. It's the right of the leader of the Samagi Jana Balawegaya to nominate himself, per se, for the presidential candidature at an upcoming election. So, what the reason to this precursor to the conversation is the fact that when we speak of democracy and checks and balances in Sri Lanka, we have to start with democracy and checks and balances within our own parties, within our own alliances. So, for your opening statement, my question to you is, do you think that political parties in Sri Lanka have the kind of democracy that we wish to see in our country? Are there checks and balances that we would wish to see in our country? And of course, you can maybe draw parallels from your own party and of course, parties that you have been a part of before. Your time starts now.
Thank you, Shalan. Thank you for having me here today. And one of the very important topic where we discuss the shifts of expectation of the younger generation, especially after 2022, how this democratic practices being applied in Sri Lanka. When you see the history of Sri Lanka, Shalan, we never took control of the government in the past regimes without a democratic practice. If any issue comes, there will be an election. In the election, people decide whom they are going to form the government. So, unlike the comparing with the South Asia, Pakistan, Nepal, or Bangladesh, Maldives, our standard of democratic practices has been a long-standing practice where the Sri Lankans have most stages have expressed the democratic practices. That is one thing we have to give credit for our nation building. Secondly, when it comes to the book of Why Nation Fails, there is a particular point where critical juncture In that, where the authors say that, wherever there is a chaos or a crisis happens, there is a room for, reforms and enhance the democratic practices. So here, in the recent outcome of 2022 Aragalaya is to create accountability, transparency, and uphold the democratic practices. Democratic practices is not only limited to, elections or, institutions. It is an institutional reform. That is what people voted for this government as well. So here we should understand whether that aspiration of that people are met with. So I don't see now this government, now it's going to be completed 1 year. So all the government, all the leaders will have that 1 year full control period. There won't be a kind of a disadvantage to anyone. They won't become unfamous because in their decisions. When a time goes, a lot of resistance will come within their setup. There will be issues. So any reforms we need to introduce, we have to introduce in this 1 year. As you asked, whether we are following that democratic practices in the system of governance and system with the parties, after this entire 2024 presidential and parliamentary election, all the parties, not only one party, all the parties have changed their way of approaching people. So the feedback from the people, reaction from the people, and the voices of the people are made very vocal and understandable. So where there was a decision made where the people should adhere to that decision is no more. So from ground to top it is coming now. So that is a very good result from the outrise of the 2022. So when it comes to party, that is there. All the parties are now reforming. It is visible, everyone is now taking a different stand. When it comes to our party, the Tamil Progressive Alliance as a whole, we are comprised with the Democratic People's Front, the party Mano Ganeshan, leader Mano Ganeshan lead, and there is NUW, Mr. Digambaram leads, MP, and the Upcountry People's Front, where Radhakrishnan MP leads. So these three parties decides on how this alliance should form or create opinions, or how the policies need to be formed. So in 2015 to 2019, when this TPA was in power, unlike other regimes, there were lot of social reforms. Statutes were brought, changes were made. So this is the voice of people, where the voice being heard and utilized, and it has been made practical reforms. So likewise, the democratic situation in the country right now, yes, there is a very big need and aspiration, but are we in the track? Is it just a question? Because it is not just building economy or setting up economy framework. It is also a social restructuring, and institutional reform should be done to understand and practice the real democratic values.
So, Barath, correct me if I'm wrong, but based on what you said, it appears that the change, like you said, is coming from the bottom, but it's still on its way reaching the top.
Exactly.
Thank you very much, Barath Arullsamy. We'll get into more on that as the show progresses. I now move my attention to Lihini Fernando from the Samagi Jana Balawegya. Lihini, now, as far as democracy within a party is concerned, I think you would have a lot of experience in this, or in the lack thereof, given that the United National Party was under the leadership of Ranil Wickremesinghe for several decades. I believe he became leader maybe before I was born, and I'm at the tender age of 28 right at the moment, and then he only relinquished his leadership, or has not yet relinquished his leadership, has not yet relinquished his leadership. So against such a backdrop, Lihini, you of all people would understand the absolute need for democracy within a political party. And given that Sri Lanka's political system is based on party politics, even at a local government election, we don't go and vote for the individual representative. We vote for the party. Party nominates people for the electorate, party nominates the list. So party politics has a lot to do with democracy in Sri Lanka. So Lihini, I'll pose the same question that I posed to Barath to you. Do you think that there is the kind of democracy that Sri Lankans wish to see in the country within the Samagijana Balavegya and also within the Samagijana Sandhana, which the Samagijana Balavegya is the main constituent party? Do you think there are enough checks and balances within your party that the people would like to see in this country?
First and foremost, thank you for having me today, and it's great to be in discussion on such an interesting topic. Before I answer your question directly, I would say we are in 2025. The dynamics of politics in this country have drastically changed. I mean, we witnessed an Aragalaya in 2022 where the people of this country came forward and they voiced that they wanted a change. And now there is a expectation from the people, and no longer do we have that party loyalty, I would say. Back in the days, we used to say Kapuat Kola, Kapuat Nil. Now we don't see that. Majority of the voters fluctuate. The floating voter percentage is far higher. So what does that say? People are, yes, there are alliances and there are loyalties towards the parties, but more than that, people expect policy, people expect integrity, people look at the leader, people look at the people who are contesting. No longer is the voter a blind follower of a party. So I think this dynamics needs to be understood by all political party leaders. It's like this, change is the only thing that is constant. If you fail to change, then you fail. So to what extent are all these political party leaders in this country are understanding is also a question. Now, for example, if you take one of the good cases of change, if you say, is you can take NPP, for example, from 3%, how did they become managed to win? So they also drastically changed, and they at one point had 30 odd in parliament, went to 6, went to 3, and they took a change. Whether the change was for the right reasons, whether they came forward and said the right thing, or a ton of lies, that's up to the people to decide at the next election. But what I want to say is the politics is agile. So I think, that is also a good sign in a democracy. I mean, we are experiencing democracy, and people are exercising their franchise. And there are times where they have all gone out there, like in the presidential election, where they've all gone out there and spoken. While at the local council election, we saw a certain change also where the ruling party lost about 2 million votes. And also another thing we need to also understand is we are also in a digital age. We're no longer doing fighting. Yes, your ground level presence is important, but the digital world also plays a key factor. So I think taking all these things into consideration, our political party leaders, be it my party, be it the other parties, they must understand the changing dynamics of politics and also change themselves. If you fail to change, you also fail. And you cannot expect to do the same thing the same way and continue different results also. I mean, you take a corporate, for example, if you have been performing badly, you make certain you make certain decisions for you to win the next time. So I think if you take Samagijana Balavegya as a party, yes, we have made progress, because I mean, for us to come out of the UNP, establish a new party, then for Mr. Premadasa to be the opposition leader, then also to have that command in parliament, I think as a leader, he has performed himself to have that fort, and he also has held fort. Despite all the criticisms, despite all the accusations that come, I mean, you have to give credit for him for holding fort. But for us to win the next election, for him to be the president of this country in 2029, the party must also think of making certain reforms, which I think has been in discussion, and I think it is reforms towards the right reasons, towards winning an election, and I think it is important. But more or less what I want to say is you have to understand the voter dynamics. What is the voter asking? You have to cater to the need of the voter. If we are asking for an honest administration, if you want uncorrupt leaders, if you want young people to represent, if you want that change, the people that you put forward in your political platforms must resemble. You must walk the talk. Your ideology must represent what you actually believe. Then only will the people vote. Now, we are at one point, people say that there are trends that are created in politics. Trends decide. Trends outweigh. There are trends that are created, there are artificial trends that are made. So, I mean, you can say to an extent, even this particular administration that we see today, I mean, they came through a narrative, they said 76 years, they portrayed all of us as rogues. I mean, you take my party, there are so many credible people who have not even robbed a cent, but who were rejected at the general election. So the narrative that they created was very well positioned. So if we are also to win the next election, maybe we will also have to create that narrative, but that also has to be towards what people are asking and for the right reasons. So any party that comes in must respect democratic values at the end of the day. We have a constitution. Sri Lanka is known to be one of Asia's oldest democracies, and that democratic principles must be adhered to by any leader. And I'm sorry to say, but Mr. Anurakumara Dissanayake, what he stated in his campaign stages versus what he is delivering right now, there's a huge gap. I don't think the people of this country expected Mr. Dissanayake to be a leader of that sort. A simple example, I mean, they are also having certain repressive strategies that they're applying. Recently, the accusations against Dr. Harsha De Silva. I want to say this very clearly. Dr. Harsha De Silva, on a statement that he made in Parliament, how they are trying to portray him as a complete traitor against Sri Lanka, which I think is highly uncalled for. If they are affected by a statement that Mr. De Silva said, I would say NPP must go back and check on their diplomacy and their relationship with India. If Mr. Harsha De Silva can make such an impact, MPP must see what is their relationship towards India. I think it is a complete lie that they are trying to create another story for their advantage, which is a shame. And that is not the politics that people expect from NPP. I think they must govern. They have a mandate. They came with their manifesto. They put it forward, and people accept it. And they must govern within the democratic principles. And I also want to say this, checks and balances. The opposition is there to do the checks and balances. In Parliament, they will whistleblow. We will talk to the point. Doesn't mean we are traitors. Doesn't mean Harsha De Silva or Sajid Premadas is a traitor. Doesn't mean Kabir Hashim is a traitor just because they speak in Parliament. That is their right because they are elected voters of the people. But NPPs today is labeling them as traitors. Now, this is a very bad precedence that they are setting in this country. We blame back in the day when SLPP government created false stories. But NPP today is also doing the same thing where they are trying to hoodwink and make the right the wrong and people to believe. Because at the end of the day, they are not doing the right thing. They are also catering to their voter. So I think these are things that people of this country must view intelligently.
Thank you very much, Lihini. Of course, we'll get into the facts and details of what was spoken of in the opening statements as we progress. Of course, we must inform our viewers that there is no representation from the government today, unfortunately. So, despite that, of course, it's part of Sri Lanka's democracy and our topic of discussion today. We will get into all of that. I now move my attention to Attorney at Law Dimitra Abeysekara from the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna. Dimitra, Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna has been through quite a lot of twists and turns, from starting off as a new party, gaining absolute power over the entire country, to dropping back to 3 seats in Parliament. My question to you is also the same, in line with today's topic, checks and balances in Sri Lanka's democracy. Is there democracy within the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna that the people would like to see in the country? Is there any room? Now, the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna is speaking of young leaders because, of course, arguably the most possible presidential candidate from the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna for the next presidential election is Namal Rajapaksa, who would be among the youngest candidates to contest the presidency, as he was at the previous election. But my question to you is there room for anyone else in the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna to maybe rival Namal Rajapaksa and even take his place at the next presidential election? Is that kind of democracy, that kind of opportunity available for the youth in the SLPP?
Shalan, thank you for that question. I think that's a very valid question, and I would say that there is, and I will go into exactly why. The Podujana Peramuna is founded on principles of socialism. It's a socialist party. It has always aligned with the left, at least left of center. And what you need to understand is this last election, the general election that I contested for, was my first ever entry into politics. And I was entrusted with contesting for the Colombo district. And that was handed to me. I didn't ask for it. I didn't go behind it. It was called and offered to me. And I stepped up to the challenge. And there have been so many young candidates that came forward. Like Lihini said, none of them have any accusations of theft. The Podujana Peramuna, I would say, has been cleaned 99.98% of all the riffraff that was needed to be cleaned. And
So is that an admission that there was quite a lot of riffraffing?
well, I mean, the facts speak for itself. Look at a lot of former ministers and politicians and administrators who are facing the music now. That's not something we need to hide. You're an attorney at law. I'm an attorney at law. Lihini is an attorney at law. Barath's a lawyer. She has a investigative journalist.
He's the guy who exposes everyone.
Exactly. So I would say there is absolute democracy within the SLPP. The freedom that has been afforded to the young politicians who are there now, in respect of what was not afforded to a lot of politicians back in the day. I have had the experience of working on SLFP campaigns with senior ministers whose experience as junior novice politicians and their journey rising up and the amount of hurdles that they had to face in terms of seniority is far greater than what we have now. And in fact, the discourse and the dialogue in the SLPP is very open. And I don't think there's a question of, is there anybody to rival Namal Rajapaksa? First and foremostly, within the SLPP, there isn't. But if there is reason for someone to rise up through the ranks, I don't think it would be a rivalry, because it is on socialism and those principles operating on a very familiar ground. So it would be more so an invitation to say anyone who's up for the challenge, anybody who the party feels as a whole can take it on, will take it on. There is a Politburo, there is a Central Committee, there are subcommittees, there are advisory committees. So it's not one or two people deciding the entire journey of this party, as has been done through most parties in history. If you look at any party, it has always been spearheaded by one person. Yes, there is a figurehead, but there is still an advisory role. There are committees, and I believe that it is one of the most youth-centered parties. It is the most youth-centered party right now. Like you said, we have the youngest presidential candidate. We have one of the youngest team leaders. And with that reliance and the entire youthful team that is part of the SLPP, as well as its alliance, which I'm a member of, we hope actually
you don't want to admit that you are SLPP.
No. I'm very much so. In fact, I'm fighting to stay in the alliance. In fact, a lot of decisions, as one of the youngest members of my party, we fight to stay in it, because I truly believe that the direction in which the SLPP is now heading, lessons learned, is a good direction. I mean, my name has been nominated for several elections prior to this one, and this was the only one in which it wasn't. And then even during interim periods, there were certain officers I was asked to hold, which were sent up. Again, the seniority, blocked it. But the injection of youth into the SLPP, the confidence of the youth, and that floating vote, which is now taking a turn, and the sails are down, and we're moving with the wind. So I would say that, yes, there is absolute democracy. And having dabbled in politics for over 12 to 13 years, I would say that I can confidently say that the SLPP is by far the most democratic party in terms of its party membership and the opportunities it offers to its members, and especially the younger members.
So, Dimitra, just one follow-up question on that. Now, when we look at democracies, of course, we are succeeding from a Westminster system. It was the British who first introduced democracy in Sri Lanka, one of the first colonies in which democracy was introduced by the British too. That's kind of our genesis on that. So we tend to look at the United Kingdom, European countries, because that's the kind of democracy, of course, that began in Sri Lanka, but of course it has diversified into a different area entirely. But when we look at countries like the United Kingdom, you don't get leaders of political parties in that seat of leadership for 10, 15, 20, 30 years. They contest an election. If they lose the election, they step down. Nobody asks them, nobody tells them, nobody goes and, have people go and say, no, we want you. No, they step down. There have been several instances where in the United Kingdom, the leadership of the Labour and the Conservative parties have changed almost in the span of 5, 3, 2, maybe even less than that years. So, but we don't really see that culture in Sri Lanka. And I'm posing this question to you, Dimitra, because now Barath said that, the call for change is coming from the people itself. It's coming from the bottom up, and the party, or his party, is still reforming. It's in the process. Lihini also expressed a similar sentiment. But you are saying that the SLPP is the most youth-oriented party. We have absolute democracy within our party. So when you say absolute democracy, is it that standard or is it much less standard?
I would say it's that standard. It's growing because, again, going back to your very question about the fact that the leadership doesn't change. We have seen that, like you said, 30 years we saw
more than
Ranil Wickremesinghe for over 3 decades holding on to the leadership. And that isn't necessarily something you can point at the leadership and say, because it's not something they hold by themselves. We are a country that has had more attempted coup d'etats than a lot of other countries. We've seen a president being evicted from office.
But I will have to disagree with you on that one, Dimitra, because when it comes to the question of Ranil Wickremesinghe, it was not that the party didn't ask him to leave. They did ask him on several occasions. But they came to a point where they left the party.
No, Shalan, yeah, but still, the majority of people voted for him to stay in office. It was not illegally held. It was
who voted for him to stay in the office of leader of the United National Party?
The majority of the party. They always have the convention. It is through convention that his appointment comes in, and through the nomination of the chairman of the party, whoever that is at the time.
But we know that's rigged. We know that it's rigged. According to the party constitution, I think.
Well, that's your allegation. I'm not making blunt statements like that, Shalan. But all I'm saying is, whatever it is, yes, we have seen, a lack of opportunity being afforded to the youth. But if you look at this last election, the SLPP had the highest number of youth candidates being put forward at the general election.
But Dimitra, do those statistics really translate to what you are saying right now, that Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna is the most democratic party in Sri Lanka? Does that translate? Just because I know that my previous senior members of the party are not going to win this election, so I'm putting youth candidates. So can we now say that statistic alone?
No, Shalan, it wasn't that we're putting youth candidates because there are no seniors. There were ample individuals to contest these elections. There were heaps of applications for.
Are you telling me that there was not a mass exodus of SLPP seniors to the New Democratic Front under the leadership of Ranil Wickremesinghe?
There was, but I'm saying that's not the reason the youth was picked. It wasn't
it their seats that they filled?
No, there were plenty of other seats. It was not seats. Each electorate has how many candidates that can be put forward? Colombo has 22.
Dimitri, I think that the opportunity the youth got also, with the seniors losing their credibility in the past, right?
Absolutely.
So even if they contest, they won't win.
True, I fully agree. No, I fully agree with you, but that's exactly why I'm saying the trend in which the party is going. And in fact, Namal Rajapaksa has on several occasions admitted certain failures that took place during President Mahinda Rajapaksa's period as well as President Gotabaya Rajapaksa's period. He has openly admitted and said, yes, these are mistakes that have been made. And if that's not permitted within a democracy, I don't see how he's going to be able to say that if the channels are so in control.
And with that, of course, we will conclude with Dimitra's opening statement. Went a little, and of course, Shihar Anis, being the journalist that he is, could not resist posing the questions even before the round of journalists began. But Shihar, of course,
sorry,
no problem, Shihar. We now open the floor for questions from our journalists. Today we have very able-bodied Shihar Anis, of course.
So I'll start with Lihini. Lihini said something very important. The opposition is there to do checks and balance, right? Is it really doing that? I am asking this question. I'll give you context. The context. Now, the NPP government, they promised lot of reforms, lot of changes, right? It's almost 1 year, but now, if you ask the people are not satisfied with the government, right? Yes, the government is trying to do something in terms of changing the laws, the rules, right? They are trying to do, but not what they promised, right? There is the criticism is that's not what they promised, right? So, in that context, do you see the opposition is really doing the checks and balances in the democracy?
Most certainly. Now, if you see, I'll quote recently, I think yesterday, Mr. Kabir Hashim in Parliament spoke about the finances, the economic situation. He whistleblowed he said that the foreign reserves are depleting. So he said that now what was something that we all know is by 2028 we have to start paying the debt in this country. So we have to pay about 5 billion debt. So and also it is important that our growth rates in this country are maintained. So now during Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe's time in 2024 our growth rates were 5%. But with the ADB, now ADB has said that Sri Lanka's growth rate is 3.9%, while IMF said it's 3.5% and World Bank also had said it was 3.5%. Now ADB predicts that in 2026 it will be 3.4%. Now then if we are to pay this particular debt in 2028, we have to grow at 5%. Now yesterday Mr. Kabir Hashim said in Parliament that our foreign reserves in this country are not growing. The gross reserves have come down from March to June to 6.04 billion. And also, so if you do the maths, we have to get at least about 250 million US dollars. So I mean SJB as a party have always been talking about the indices, the figures, the economy, not in this particular government per se, but even during Gotabe's administration time, when the taxes were cut down, we alerted. When COVID came, we alerted. I mean, we are playing the role of the opposition. I would say not the conventional opposition. What you would expect the opposition to is what the JVP did back in the day. Go on the road, protest, disrupt the country. We are not disrupting the country. Now, for example, if you take JVP, now they are NPP, now they are blaming us in Parliament, saying that we are traitors, that we are, I mean, if you quote Honorable Lakmali Hemachandra, use certain words saying the Kuhaka Vipaksha, Majara Vipaksha. These are the words that she's been using in Parliament. Now, she is making us an allegation saying that, you know, our accusations of what we are saying that the government is doing are false, which is not. We are alerting the government, which is the clear role of the opposition. Now, if like what JVP did back in the day to get on the road and protest and disrupt the government, we don't want to do that, because at the end of the day, people in this country have given them the mandate. It is up to the NPP to perform. Today, what you and I see is a government that is failing, that is unable to live up to the promises that they gave. Now, you take, for example, this postal strike that is happening. Now, we are happy that if they can implement the fingerprint system, we are happy that if they can go into digitalization, because that is what is required in this country. But what we see is the government not being able to do what they say. Now, if they are talking about development, if they are talking about digitization, if they are talking about reforms, they must do that. Now, today, what do we see? Now, we take the capital expenditure of this country, take the budgetary spendings of this country. Now, this particular government have not spent their from the 2025 budget. The capex expenditure, they have not spent. Now, there is a huge issue in this country. The economy is not growing as expected. So, isn't it the role of the opposition to alert this? Now, this is what I'm saying. That is one thing. And then also we have, when it comes to certain bills, education reforms, we have spoken. And also now you take, I want to also bring this particular issue of the energy minister, the issue that is happening right now.
Lihini, just one moment before you move into that. Now, even in your opening statement, you mentioned this statement made by Dr. Harsha De Silva and how he was branded as a traitor by members of government on social media, so on and so forth. Now, I saw that clip, and I saw also the clarification given by Dr. Harsha De Silva. Now, to me, based on what I saw, what happened in Parliament was there was a debate on these matters, on the tariff that the US has imposed, and towards the end of the debate, Dr. Harsha De Silva made a statement saying, you know, don't laugh at India. Don't laugh at India because they helped us when we were in trouble. Now, subsequently, however, in the clarification given by Dr. Harsha De Silva, he said that he made that statement based on the events that took place in Parliament that day. So, based on his statement, he said, don't laugh at India. So, my question to you is, who really laughed from the government? Like, was there any information on that? Because that wasn't really shown in the clip.
No, so
the camera was focused on Dr. Harsha De Silva alone. So, did Dr. Harsha De Silva see exactly who laughed in Parliament? Just clarity on this.
There was from what I understood, there was a statement that was made by the Honourable President, and in relation to that only that he had made the statement, also in relation to their body language in Parliament. That's what was stated, and in reaction to that, all those discussions, only Dr. Harsha De Silva stated, and then also he had just posted that clip on his Twitter, and then the NPP now brings that to the fact that he had put subtitles to it, which is another lie, because he
usually puts subtitles
for the past 10 years he has been putting subtitles, and his post went viral. I mean, any post that he comments goes viral. So I mean, picking on issues like things like this. I mean, he now he's a chairman of the COF, and now he alerts the government on certain economic issues, and I mean he as a elected representative have always spoken in favor of the people of this country. Alerting the government is the role of the opposition. Just because you do that doesn't mean that you are a traitor. Now, what they are trying to do is, it is again a political gimmick. No, now they are trying to say Dr. Harsha De Silva is a traitor, and that he is trying to sabotage the image of the country. Which, I mean, I don't think the government even should have said that, because at the end of the day, a government, India being our close ally, a government must have a good relationship with India. Their relationship outweighs what Mr. De Silva says. So the government shouldn't feel insecure just because of a statement that Dr. De Silva made. If they are making that statement, they must go back and check on their diplomacy and their diplomatic relationships with India.
No, but I believe there were statements from government MPs also saying that this statement is not really going to affect our diplomacy.
Yeah, so that then, I mean, but then you don't see on social media, it's just created, I mean, it's just gone out of control. Why? So what we see, Shalan, is the government is trying to rely from story to story. They need a story every week. They either need to come and present a list in Parliament, or they need to talk about curtailing parliamentarians' privileges, or they need to say who took casino license or who took bar license, or then who has misused the presidential fund. We saw and who back in the day, Nalinda Jayatissa coming in Parliament and presenting a list after list every week.
But then, Lihini, now, especially since you spoke about the presidential fund, Lihini, now the presidential fund is there for certain purposes. There's a preamble to the act on how the fund should be used. And even the opposition leader is a part of the committee that is set up to, have some checks and balances on the presidential fund. But now when we look at how money has been spent from the president's fund, even in the past, at times when Ranil Wickremesinghe was the opposition leader, when Sajith Premadasa was the opposition leader, even Barath, you're talking about Tamil parties, when Honorable R. Sambandhan, the late R. Sambandhan was the opposition leader. These monies have been spent. So now, does that mean that usually what we would see is, now like you quite rightly said, Lihini, the opposition are the whistleblowers. Now, if 500,000 rupees has been spent on or 500 or 300,000 rupees has been spent on the hospital bill of a parliamentarian who can very well afford that himself. He could do that operation maybe 10 times over. And I was the opposition leader sitting in that committee, and this bill came up, and now it's up to release funds. I would question that. But nobody questioned any of this, Lihini. So where was the opposition then? Because it was almost the same political leadership, the same members of the political parties. So where was it then? And when you say that this government is looking for topics and, bringing in lists and all that, I mean, I'm sorry, but I beg to differ, because I believe that the people should know about this.
No, see, bringing out lists and all of that, it's okay. But then they must take action on it. It's not just putting out lists for political sensation and then forgetting about it. Now, that's what they've been doing. They put out lists. Where is the action?
But I think that there has been a complaint at the CID. There's a procedure ongoing.
No, those bar license they were to cancel. Then they go back on their particular word. I'm
not aware of the bar license, but as far as the President's Fund is concerned, we saw Honorable Abeysekara going and giving a statement. There were several other members who went and gave statements. So investigations are ongoing. I haven't really checked up on the progress of that, but like we all know, Sri Lanka's legal system is,
No, but then, that's not the point. They came saying within 6 months they will do this. Then they should have made all those promises when they came to power. They should have calculated saying what is doable and what is not doable.
Also, Lihini, you spoke about the curtailment of privileges of MPs, and of course we need to speak about the privileges of former presidents also. And now you, Lihini, you complain that the NPP is not fulfilling their promises to the people. The promises that they gave to the people are included in the NPP manifesto. Now, the NPP manifesto included promises saying we will curtail security details of former presidents, which are extremely excessive. We will curtail their privileges. We will curtail parliamentary privileges. We will cancel the pensions of parliamentarians, all of that was there. Now when they start doing that, Lihini, then you complain saying...
No. I think you're misinterpreting that. Not that I'm complaining, not that I'm saying that it should not be done. That's not what I'm trying to say. See, everything must be viewed in context. Nothing is viewed in context. See, if they are doing things for the right reasons, then it's well and good. Now, for example, you take our presidents who have served this country. They have served this country for a certain period of time. And then there is a certain obligation from the state to look after those leaders also, because our leaders are also the pride of the nation. The problem in this country, Shalan, throughout the years, people who have been in government have abused the power. Now we are viewing everything from that context. So because of that, everybody tries to say, no, we don't need to take salaries, we don't need to take pensions, we don't need this, curtail everything. But you have to view everything in context. Now that is what is not happening with the NPP. Now,
but Lihini, what I'm saying is this is the promise that they gave the people, and the people approved of this.
I mean, they can make promises, doesn't mean that everybody has to agree to their promises. There are many who don't agree to their promises. I mean, you take for example.
So are you saying that now the NPP government should not implement these promises that they gave the people in their manifesto?
No, so it's like this. When you're implementing certain promises, you must look at the practicality of it. You must view it in context. That's what I'm saying. Now, you take for example the past presidents who have been using these houses. Now, are you trying to tell me from tomorrow they need to leave these houses and go back to their old, or either they must implement it from going forward from this day onwards? So you have to view this in context, or either curtail it to a certain extent. So you bring in certain controls. Say, okay, if you are looking after a particular president, this is the house amount that we are going to give to his housing.
The real problem here is, Lihini, from the side of the general public. Now, there was a promise given in the manifesto, and the people approved that.
No, see, it's like this. You have to look at again. They played into the emotions of the people. Did they give the right promises?
Were the people, Lihini, at that point of time, were the people wrong in being emotional?
See, they went and said that all politicians in this country are rogues. There was a 76-year-old curse that they portrayed. And what lot of fake promises that they have given. They said they'll bring those money from Uganda.
But Lihini, let's focus on the perks and privileges of former presidents. Now, when we look at former presidents and the statements that they make, they say, we don't want any of these privileges. I think there was a headline making the stories saying all former presidents are uniting to fight this bill that curtails their provisions. Immediately after that, we see a statement from former President Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga saying, no, I'm not part of any challenge to this. Then we see a statement from Ranil Wickremesinghe, and to his credit, he never took privileges of former presidents even after he left office. He did not take. Then there was an event that was attended by former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and former President Mahinda Rajapaksa. When Gotabaya Rajapaksa was questioned on this, he said, no, I don't know about it. If they are doing it, let them do it. I don't care about it. Then former President Mahinda Rajapaksa was questioned about it. He said, Madamulane is better than Vijayarame for me. Madamulane is much more peaceful. I like to go there. I would like to go there. But then, Dimitra, could you shed some light on this? Because if the former presidents have absolutely no problem in giving up their privileges. We know that the current president has. No. See, the current president would also, subsequent to this act, would lose all of his privileges. So, Dimitri, if all former presidents are okay with giving up their privileges, and also Lihini was speaking about taking all of this in context, mind you, all of these former presidents come from very rich families, very affluent backgrounds, and they have enough money and enough assets mind you, for several generations. So, Dimitri, could you justify this to me?
That latter part, you can't really necessarily make that remark on what is seen on the peripherals. But having said that, I will address this issue of the housing and the benefits and privileges given to former presidents and parliamentarians. I'm fully in agreement with Lihini in terms of the fact that the government made all these blunt promises, right? They said, okay, hold on, let me. I understood your question. I'll respond now. Okay. And now, first and foremost, let's go to the smallest bit. They said, okay, right, members of parliament don't get any benefits, all of those things. We contested an election where we were ready to take that on. but there was a legitimate expectation of every other politician who came in that these are the benefits and privileges that they would be afforded. And there are certain financial commitments. I personally, if I was a member of parliament, I don't need an official vehicle. I don't need the security. I'm not afraid, right? But having said that, the NPP that very well said that they're going to reduce this security, there are deputy ministers who've sat across me at this table who have now made personal requests for advanced security. I don't want to disclose that because I have put in RTI requests and those have not come in.
So, but then you can't still say for certain.
No, I know for a fact because each person is entitled to 4. Count the number that is with... count the number of security personnel that are with a minister or a member of parliament when they arrive. It's more than 4,
I can't.
Secondly, hold on, Shalan, hold on.
No,
Secondly,
but if you are making an allegation, Dimitra, you have to now. Since there are no representatives of the NPP present here today, if you are making an allegation, you have to make a specific allegation. You can't just say.
Okay, right. The Prime Minister's security detail.
Okay.
Wherever
Prime
she
Minister's
goes.
security detail.
The President has 1 vehicle, 1 pilot vehicle, and 1 backup vehicle.
Okay.
The Prime Minister's convoy.
Okay.
90% of the time, there's more than 3 vehicles, almost 4.
Okay.
It's all over. I mean, I have personally seen it myself.
Okay.
Right? So, where is the whole reduction that is required? Where is the security assessment? Where is the threat? The leaders that have been in power up to date are individuals who have served in high capacities during the war. And like Lihini said, even the opposition leader,
Yes, exactly.
right? The opposition leader is the son of a president who was assassinated. We have provided the...
But so, Dimitra, are you saying that that you or the SLPP would accept these security threats and would accept a system that runs on security threats?
No, Shalan,
Or an assessment.
There has to be an assessment.
There has to be an assessment.
Yeah, that is, in fact, that is what the government promised.
It's when the government did an assessment on the former security detail of former President Mahinda Rajapaksa, who had about 260 security officials, and the result of that security assessment is that needs to be curtailed to a certain number, and then your own party challenged that in the Supreme Court.
Shalan, this is the leader who provided leadership to a country whose 30-year civil war ended.
Okay.
When he walks into a premises, there is more people present there to see him than there is to see the entire present government. Right? You have to understand, every single assassination or attempted assassination that took place in this country have taken place in smaller cohorts of people than those that surround him when he's around. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa doesn't move with as much security as President Mahinda Rajapaksa, but that is because President Mahinda Rajapaksa needs it. Internationally, it's accepted. When he still flies overseas, even after he was president, but not of recent, but there's still a certain security detail that's provided him. There are security. The Sri Lankan government recently provided certain Bollywood celebrities with more security than they provided the former president. What for?
Exactly.
Because someone attacked one person once before. Then what about the number of attempted assassination attempts on high-profile government officers who have served during the war? That is in respect of one promise that this government made. And like you said,
you're talking about security.
Exactly. Which is why I'm going to the house, because you keep butting into my question. Okay. So with regard to the housing, perfect question. One of the first things they said is, why does the president need such a big house? Why do the prime ministers need it? We will capitalize on this. Look, whether they're in those residences or not, the staff is there, it operates. The cost of them going to other residences, the Speaker of Parliament, in fact, doesn't reside at the Speaker's residence, but resides in an allocated separate residence located in Bambalapitiya under the Ministry of Public Administration. Right? So, that's 2 residences for one public officer. Doesn't mean the Speaker's house is closed up and you and I can go and jump over the fence and play cricket. It still functions. Then what about the cost involved in these people's security around? What about the inconvenience to neighbors? What about privacy issues? The reason these official bungalows are given is because it serves a much bigger purpose than being fanciful. In all honesty, some of these houses that are used by high-ranking government officials are smaller than a lot of privately owned residences.
the problem is, Dimitra, you're missing the point. You're looking at part of the story, Dimitra, because the reason why the privileges of former presidents, the privileges of parliamentarians is being brought to the fore is because they were so blatantly abused. Former President Maithripala Sirisena sat at the head of a cabinet meeting.
This was made like a fantasy and sold to the people.
Absolutely.
They made the whole political system in this country and a mockery. They made using privileges, the president going on a helicopter or something of that sort, using privileges for use of office they made it a mockery. And today they are suffering because of the promises. That's why you have people like Minister Lal Kanta, from time to time coming and making certain statements saying, okay, it's okay, even if you have security, it's okay even to use a house. Why is he making statements of that nature?
So, but Lihini,
NPP failed to understand the principles of governing a country. Certain privileges are given. Certain privileges are given. Security is given. Fuel is given for you to perform the functions of the office. You need to use them. That is why they are given. It is not a luxury. It's a necessity.
Lihini, one moment. Shalan, look at it this way. If you look at the state bungalows that have been given to former presidents, Triforces commanders have been given equal houses. Why are they not complaining about the Triforces commanders' residences? Why are they not complaining about the central bank governors' residence? Why is it only the former presidents?
So, like I said, Dimitra, it is because the former presidents had abused.
You're saying abuse. You're now going into. You almost raised this. President Maithripala Sirisena sitting at cabinet, assigning himself an official bungalow.
Yes.
A massive bungalow. Massive by what standard? I can tell you. I personally, if you go and look at my grandfather's house, it's smaller.
But Dimitra, that's not the point, Dimitra. Now, public officials,
come on, Shalan.
Dimitra, international standards. I would accept your argument of international standards if politicians in Sri Lanka adhered by international standards. But I'm sorry, Dimitra, to bring you down to reality, that is not the state of this country.
No, on what
in
basis?
2022, Dimitra, in 2022, you don't act like you've just woken up out of a dream. We lived in this country when there were times when people didn't have food, people didn't have fuel, so on and so forth. Dimitra, my question is very simple, Dimitra. You still didn't answer my question. My question is, if all the former presidents are of the opinion that they have enough money to afford their own house, security detail, I agree. There needs to be a threat assessment. There needs to be adequate security provided. None of the during the threat assessment, of course, they look at lodging for security personnel. They look at transport for security personnel. They look at all of those. So your argument that by former presidents moving to whatever massive bungalows that they already own does not provide adequate security, does not hold water, because of course the threat assessment would go into that. So Dimitri, my question to you again, I pose this question again. If all the former presidents are all right with moving into houses of their own and not being a burden on the general public by staying in these massive bungalows, and if the threat assessment does not flag any threats on them by doing that, and also if the general public, not if the general public, against a backdrop where the general public has approved all of this, are you still saying, no, we must not do this, we must not go through with this legislation?
Shalan, like I said, if you look at the United States, former presidents and their wives are not permitted to even comment on the security detail and the residential
But you're comparing chalk and cheese.
No,
You're comparing chalk and cheese.
Again, international standards.
Laws
Shalan.
are brought not to satisfy one regime, but laws are brought for years. These laws, this is not just
you said laws are not bought to satisfy one regime when the SLPP government itself bought in. So you're not. You subscribe to that.
Yeah,
SLPP regime bought in an amendment,
which is
not
wrong.
a law.
Yeah,
the
which is wrong.
Constitution.
Those are wrong.
Basil Rajapaksa to come into parliament, take up a prime position like that.
1 minute, Shalan.
Yes.
Was not the provision that was repealed by that constitutional amendment brought by the previous regime again to prevent certain individuals from coming in?
20th Amendment reversal.
Yeah. No.
I don't understand your logic.
You're talking about the 20th Amendment, no?
Yes.
Was the 19th not brought in? The 20th did away with provisions that were brought over by the 19th. So what about the 19th when it curtailed individuals who were
then
coming?
what is the standard? What is the standard?
So the
standard is let anyone in.
The standard is, Shalan, if you are a citizen of this country and you hold citizenship and you have a right to exercise your franchise, you should be qualified to be an elector. You should be qualified to be elected. That should be a standard.
And that is the stance of the SLPP.
I'm talking to you in terms of democracy, but I can't say for sure if that is the stance of the SLPP because I haven't verified it.
Dimitra,
Can I answer that question?
You don't mind a person who has citizenship in another country contesting in the election getting into office?
As long as the individual's loyalty is to this country and his citizenship. Now the US, you can put your citizenship on hold. There are certain countries which aligning with our foreign policy may not be correct. So if you can view it in that light, you can always put a foreign citizenship on hold. There are lots of this is in respect of people who have dual citizenship. But what about the number of people who have citizenship in 2 countries who have not subscribed to dual citizenship? In fact, when Honorable Geeta Kumarasinghe was had to leave Parliament because her case was proven to be on grounds of her dual citizenship, there were individuals in Parliament, or at least I've heard of, who had citizenship in foreign countries, but they were not dual citizens. And there was no issue there. Personally, I would say I'm not subscribing to it, but in terms of globalization, I would say that democracy has to grow, and you can't curtail people's freedom just because they have citizenship elsewhere unless they have a vested interest in that state.
But there is a possibility, right?
There is a possibility. There's a high possibility. Again, down to assessment. I agree. Yeah. There is a possibility.
Yeah.
Can I answer your question?
Definitely.
As I said, laws are not brought to satisfy one regime per se. Laws are brought for the betterment of the country. If the presidents of the ex-presidents don't want to use houses, let them not use. Let them go to their personal houses and stay. That is okay. I mean, at the end of the day, a leader, also their consciousness and their responsibility to the state must speak. We have not had leaders of that nature. We have had leaders who abuse the state power. That is why you and I today are in discussion of this particular topic. But the state must provide, the state must look after their presidents, at least a certain house of a certain limit. I mean, you can say rent up to this extent, security up to 2 officials, I mean, privileges up to you can have certain parameters. The problem in this country, Shalan, throughout what you and I are experiencing is that the leaders who are elected by the people abuse the power. That's why that's why NPP went and sold those nice rhetorics and stories, and people brought all that. And now they are saying, okay, they put all that in that manifestos. Doesn't mean that the entire manifesto is right. If you implement everything that is in that manifesto, this country will further go down.
So you're saying the NPP should only implement portions of the manifesto that you're in agreement with?
See, it's like this. I mean, we are in the other side because we don't agree to that manifesto. People in this country voted for SJB and all the other parties against the NPP because they don't agree to what NPP proposed.
Lihini, again now.
And also, Shalan, do people read manifestos? They don't read manifestos in this country.
I do read manifestos.
I mean, majority of the country. I mean, people voted for the People should read. Agree. And manifestos should be legitimate documents also. We've spoken of this many times, I think, in this platform.
It's selective application of their manifesto in terms of a very bad precedent that they're setting, where those promises are not in light of the legitimate expectation of the people, but a very attack on the individuals that they want to attack.
And it is also going to bring the quality of this country down, Charlotte.
Let's talk about promises in manifestos. Now, wasn't it the promise of the SLPP to, bring to justice the mastermind behind the central bank bond scam, that is Ranil Wickremesinghe? How are things going in that front?
You said Ranil Wickremesinghe.
Yes.
That's
according to you. I was quoting your manifesto.
I didn't say that.
So
but,
wow. So Dimitra, now this is the funny part of politics that I don't really find funny, Dimitra, because how can this? I mean, this is just double standard. This is completely bonkers.
Charlotte,
for the lack of a better word.
No, true, I agree. Charlotte, to address that point, what you have to understand is the manifesto is what was put forward if we had government, right? In terms of an opposition. Hold on.
I'm talking about the 2019. Your got government. Gotabaya Rajapaksa was
you have to understand. No, I agree, but you have to understand there were a lot of behind the scenes steps that were taken, and I'm not saying this purely as an SLPP. I'm saying this in terms of tacit information. I know a lot of steps were taken with Interpol because there are certain, as a lawyer, there is certain information. There are court productions. There are statements that have to be obtained prior to certain steps, including indictments that could be filed. You have to understand this. And certain,
okay. So, but you all appointed him as the president.
You can't say all. It was a majority of the individuals who then left.
Namal Rajapaksa voted in favor of Ranil Wickremesinghe.
And like I said, he has come.
Namal Rajapaksa voted in favor of.
They have come forward on many occasions, Shalan, and said there are instances where certain mistakes were made, and Namal Rajapaksa has been very critical of those things, including, like I said, certain mistakes that were made by his father and his uncle.
Okay, Dimitra, let's look at that statement and see how we can look to the future. Now, you are saying that Namal Rajapaksa comes and admits that certain mistakes were made.
Absolutely.
Let's see what has happened in the past. After the 2015 presidential election defeat, Mahinda Rajapaksa came out and said, I've made mistakes, I've hidden files, I haven't taken action against certain MPs, certain ministers, we protected them, that was wrong. Then, of course, the argument was made, well, we've realized our mistakes, now we're not going to make any more mistakes, please give us power, this is the brother of the former president, he will save our country. Power was given. What did he do? He came in, he pardoned Duminda Silva, he pardoned another a member of the army who was accused of heinous crimes, all out of procedure, and then now you come again, and then of course you all said that the central bank bond scam masterminds will be put behind jail, that alleged person was made the president. Now you come and say again, well, we made mistakes again, sorry guys, but next time, third time's a charm. So you tell me, Dimitra, now, why should we believe you? Why should the people believe you?
That's a good question, Shalan. That's actually a very loaded and very good question. Okay, so looking back at things like presidential pardons and including the bond scam, there are advisory panels. In fact, I am fully in agreement with you that any step, any decision taken by the executive or any member of the government, in fact, these are challenged before the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeal on a regular basis for falling outside of procedure. And it goes right down from the most menial administrative decision to some of the highest decisions, from the president right down to contract employees of the government. And yeah, there were faults, and why there should be an entrustment is for the same reason. You brought up the fact that President Mahinda Rajapaksa said, I had files, we protected these people. Let's go to the government. They brought stacked up files, named people. The president actually said, he has a check with President Mahinda Rajapaksa's name on it.
I understand.
Where are the steps that the incumbent government is taking in terms of the promises they have made?
So, but Dimitra, if I have to address that point, yeah. Dimitra, and if I am to vote at the next election, if, as you say, this government does not take steps against any of the people, or a majority of the people at least, who they accused of wrongdoing, I'm not going to be voting for this government at the next election. Absolutely. I'm definitely not going to be voting for the SLPP, because you guys didn't take steps either. I'm going to be voting for someone new. So you tell me, Dimitra, why should the people vote for you? So not why they shouldn't vote for the government.
So Shalan, on that very question, yes. You tell me, you said you're not voting for the SLPP and that you need to vote for someone new. Have I been involved in government and have a majority of the people who have been coming forward had any accusations, or can you point a finger at me and say I have any involvement in any of these things?
But your party.
But your party.
No,
it's party politics.
Like I said, 99.98% of them have been.
You can't dissociate from your party.
Yeah. No, 99.98% of them have left now, which is why I'm saying if you can point out the number of us that are now coming forward from the SLPP, this is no different to accusations and fingers we can point at the government in terms of 83 and 88. But look, we gave them a supermajority. Why? Because they're new. We're not holding on to the old skeletons. So regardless of the fact that some of those skeletons are still controlling
we should forgive and forget. Is that what you're saying?
Well, seems like that's what Sri Lanka has done at the last presidential and parliamentary election.
I think that's quite far from the truth. Barath, Barath, you've been quite silent. Don't think you've been let off the hook. Of course, you too, your party, you are aspiring to be a public representative. Your party is answerable to the people. Now, Barath, we are talking about the rights of the Tamil community in Sri Lanka. Of course, at the previous election, the so-called Tamil national parties in Sri Lanka failed quite miserably. They commanded a massive majority in the north, the east, and in certain electorates, of course, also in the hill country. But you lost all of that. And recently, Barath, when your party leader attended a protest, there was accusations from the other people who were at the protest saying these political party representatives have come here to spread racism. They are just here to give a voice cut to the media and mark their appearance. We don't want them here. So, Barath, tell me, what is happening to the credibility of these Tamil national political parties? Have they lost it?
Shalan, it's a very, very important question. See, let me just take the entire narrative after the presidential election. So, in the presidential election, you would have clearly observed the people have voted in favor of Tamil national parties, whoever supported the presidential candidate. So, in that time, when you observe where the Tamil and the minority party concerned, they expressed their most favorable choice to then presidential candidate Sajith Premadasa. Then in aftermath of the President Ekedi's victory, in the general election, yes, we saw a kind of a big rise for NPP, and the at that point your argument was making a sense where Tamil national parties had lost ground. But when it comes back to local government election, all these Tamil parties, including our party, has gained that momentum. So in the TPA, as in the among 8 districts, we have nearly 79 local government members, as well as the northern Tamil parties have the control of the north and east. So the ideology and the voice of the Tamil national parties has not declined. Yes, there were some ups and downs. As your question, first question, whether the practices are being followed, immediately all the minority parties, adhered, and they reformed their party approach very much differently. That is the result you have seen in the local government election. When it comes to the protesting, yes, it was organized by a civil organization on the invitation of Mr. Joseph Stalin. Our party leader was invited to the protest, and there were some bystanders who wanted to make a fuss of any politicians who are coming in and going. So this doesn't mean the Tamil parties and the Tamil community does not support my party leader Mano Ganeshan. So my party leader Mano Ganeshan has the same voice more than what he had earlier stages. Now we have a young second level leadership, and we are very much vocal on not only our community base but also in the national base, and we also talk about economic reform, we talk about international connections, we talk about ideologies, and we were quietly observing how this NPP's narratives are working on and how the reforms are being, the investigations are made. We question the government, and one thing I must say, Shalan, when it comes to minority parties, the NPP in the general election gained a massive support from the Tamil and Muslim communities. We all must agree on.
Without a doubt.
Yes. But the delivery is big questions. Because, the North and East Tamil community demanded a justice for the atrocities happened during the Civil War and before that. And also the Malayalam Tamil community, the Indian origin community, demanding a kind of a equity among the equals. So because I don't blame this government or the previous government and the far previous government, because of the system after 1948, the Indian origin Malayalam Tamil community was oppressed by crushing them, taking off their economic independence by defranchising the pact and everything. So now what we demand from the government, they have promised through their Hatton Declaration, we will deliver it. But unfortunately, the government is not in track. Because last 1 year, nothing has been materialized. We don't blame the government. What we do as a party, we suggest the government, yes, we have already set the groundwork. Just move forward on that groundwork. That's all. So we have taken all the Indian housing projects, Indian education projects, infrastructure project, necessary reforms to be done. Everything in the pipeline. It is just to push it and take it forward. So to answer your question, the Tamil nationalist parties and the minority parties has lost ground. No, there had been a reform, immediate reform. The people are still with the parties and the ideologies. We are working towards to make these minority communities as full-fledged Sri Lankans.
Barath, the people, upcountry people,
yes,
have been have confidence in you, and they voted for you in the last local government election. That's true. But see, their wage issue, this has been dragged for a long time, and their housing issue.
Yes.
I was there, I think 2 months back. Most of the people don't have proper address, right?
Yes.
Yeah, still they don't have. And after living for more than 100 years. They don't have a proper address. That line room only, their address, and on the postman come with the names, right?
Agreed.
Right? So what have you done?
So yet another good question, Anis. See, what have you done is a question in my previous answer also. This system of governance and the dependency model had been crushing our economic growth. We were being dependent on so many things, including the very address you mentioned about. During my tenure as the Plantation Human Development Trust chairman, I introduced a program to deliver address with the support of the postal department. We hand delivered letters to the houses itself. It is evidential, I can produce you. And also whatever the houses we made it numbered, and with the support of Planters Association, estates, and the PHTT and the state services. That is so I don't say it is 100% achieved. This is what we are calling for a immediate reform, Anis. Where our people should have the equal integration to the national mainstream. This is not been delivered. I don't say this government should do, because it has been coming for a lot of decades.
My question is, Barath, now your party and even Jeevan Tondaman's party, they have been with the government on and off,
yes.
Right? Mostly they back the government because they can get the privilege and the support to your community, but still they are an underprivileged community.
It's from 2015 to 2019, where the TPA concern, which was in the government, they brought reforms in the Local Government Act 2018, where up until 2018, the local authorities can't do any development work in the estates in the plantation region. So after 2018 Act only, the state money can be utilized for road development and other welfare of the plantation sector. And also prior to that, when Honorable late Minister Armugan Tondaman was there, the entire education structure, when Saumimurthy Tondaman was there, the education structure was from estate schools, it was incorporated into the state system. So this, as I told you, the economic independence and this dependency model was, is a continuous story. So this is what we have to come out from. This is what we are requesting for a now Honorable Leader Mano Ganeshan is proposing a statute where a national territorial community council, where these IOTs and Malayaga Tamil community has a independent say in the policy making, where all the public service officials, like public officials, MPs, provincial council members and local government members will come to that, and we have to ask the government.
Your party people are there in the parliament, they are in the councils, yes. Local councils. Why do you say that you don't have that independence to raise voice?
You should understand. Now we were making so much. Now let's talk about, you pointed out the land issues. When we were there, we brought to the extent people should given housing, house places, 7 perch and 10 purchase houses for their housing purposes. But there was lot of red tapes where the plantation companies, the PMMD, the plantation ministry has lot of red tapes. So what we are demanding for, not only in the parliament but also as statutory bodies, that is the very reason in 2015 to 2019 the New Villages Development Authority was introduced. It should be covered in a vast manner, not only on a rigid manner, in a very narrow manner. So this entire system had been suppressed, the entire. So every year, every regime, they provide some benefit, wages or everything, but now it has been outdated, obsolete. So that is what we are demanding, a kind of a liberalization of this economic model, plantation model, regimental model, where they can come as partners and revive the industry.
I remember, Barath, now in the last, I think last government, India came up with some housing schemes, right? But still people have not received any from India. They are being built, but not received, right? And then government also carrying another housing project somewhere in Nuwara. But still people don't have their houses, right? And you have been helped by India for education, for the infrastructure, right? With the government's consensus, but still nothing has improved. If you go to that area, you see kind of a different, different area.
This is what
it's
I am
completely
telling.
different Sri Lanka.
Completely different. That is what we are advocating for.
You all have been doing politics using those people.
As not only us, but also the entire presidents from 70s are doing politics with our people, right? So what I'm saying is, now as a younger generation representative, I don't want to be behind the veil of this wage issue. As a party, the Tamil Progressive Alliance is not for this regimental wage model. We wanted a profit share model or a stakeholder model. That is what we like. The new emerging markets should be built on that. And also when you talk about education, health, infrastructure, everything was limited to our community. So this is not by one individual or group of individual. This is by the entire system. So this system, this government, we should appreciate. Yes, they have identified that. But whether they are delivering it, it's a question. That is what we, in our experience, we are suggesting the government, okay, let's work together. Let's forget about our political rivalry. We strategize a plan and we will deliver it. So I'm happy that you went to our areas. You would have seen the infrastructure is bad, their living condition is bad, but also you have to see the positive side. Now, with the support of the Indian government, we have built 4,000 houses completely, and we are building 1,300 houses at the moment. And there is out of these 10,000 houses, another yet to be built. But by building these 10,000 houses, will this entire upcountry will change? No. There is only one solution for this. Make them owners of the land they live. That is all we demand for. Integrate them
even
into the system.
Even if you talk to those people who are designated those houses, the other people say they are favored. They are favored because of their political affiliations with some other parties.
And it's like, there is no permanent party representation in this trade union structure. Every 6 months, the party membership deemed to change. Any person who has alliances or allegiances with any political party can change. It is not limited to you have to be in this party to get benefit, this party to that. Now, as I told you, this entire blind following of a party has changed now. That is what young representatives like us are advocating. Okay, let us give them a kind of a definition of their house. Let's give them economic independence where they can grow.
Okay,
not only on the plantation sector but also other sectors.
Let's be honest, Barath.
Yes.
Now, what's your negotiation with the government on behalf of your people?
Exactly.
With this government?
With this government, as like our party leader, already he had proposed whatever the aspiration and the demands of our people, especially our land rights. There are 1.5 million Indian origin Malayalam Tamil community in Sri Lanka. Out of that, 1 million are living in the plantation regions. They are dependent on there. And out of that, when I was the chairman of PHTT, we created a data sheet. In that, nearly 150,000 plus families are still living in the line roads. So for them, whether the government can build 150,000 houses is a question, because since it's a socialist communist government, they should. But we can't put that burden on the government at the moment.
I mean, 150,000 people wouldn't translate to 150,000 houses. You don't need one house.
150,000 families.
Okay.
Yes. Then and also there were some houses which were built, nearly 65,000 houses during by the Sri Lankan funding, donor funding, Indian funding. They don't have proper land deeds for their houses. So these fundamental land deeds and the housing issues are sorted. One of their dignity matter and their right matter had been resolved. Then second, we are coming for education. Education in this reform, we have asked from the education minister, the prime minister, to invite the stakeholders from the plantation sector and have a dialogue. We didn't see any positive feedback on that. I have to be very frank. And third, for 20 years, the plantation health sector was, undermined, and the GMO, and on the recommendation of GMOA, the state took over all the plantation dispensaries, which was governed by the plantation companies. Now, until now, there was no MBBS doctors have been deployed. During last government, when I took an initiative to, thanks to Ramesh Patirana, health minister, we went for a cabinet decision to recruit 10 MBBS doctors and health officials to 10 selected, at least as a starter, to recruit and deploy them in the plantation region. But unfortunately, that has been not carried forward. So our negotiation with the government, and we have, our party leader Mano Ganeshan has spoken to President Andrew Kumar Dissanayake on to have a separate meeting on these issues to highlight our infrastructure and housing and land rights and education and health and our economic upliftment. So as I told you initially, we are not in favor of this wage model, way old wage model. We have to come out of that, and we have to be tea partners where we end up as tea smallholders. This is our vision. We are very clear. So to answer your question precisely, we have communicated, because the answers which are coming in the parliament by the ministers or deputy ministers or ruling party members are not concrete enough to give confidence to our people. So we have informed the executive president of this country to give a proper solution, and we are submitting our demands to him.
Dimitra, were you there in Sri Lanka from 2015 to 2019?
Yes, I was.
Okay. So you might know how SLPP fought as an opposition.
Yes.
What has happened to that character? Is it curtailed by all these allegations and the way things are going with court charges, arrests, and
No, I wouldn't think so to that extent, Shreya, because there are certain limitations in terms of, the quantities of representatives in parliament. But having said that, I also feel there is sufficient wait period, because we are not even into a year of the government. So I believe that the opposition, including the SLPP, where necessary, they have triggered the relevant questions and relevant debates in caucus. But having said that, I do believe it will only strengthen through time, but over the course of the next couple of years.
Dimitra, now, during the last government, right, I would say Yahapalne, there were only allegations, right? Now, under this government, those allegations are being proven, questioned, investigated, and some of them are now facing court charges.
Absolutely.
So people are really kind of they're really kind of worried about what has happened, and this is why still your party your party coming to the top is questionable at the moment.
At the moment,
right?
Yes.
Yeah. And there are still things to see. You will see a lot of things happening in the future because of certain allegations are not even being started, right? To be investigated.
Absolutely, yes.
Right. So in these circumstances, what kind of confidence you have that you can go against this government's all this mess up?
So here's the thing, Shahar, I don't think anybody really wants to or hopes for any government to fail, because, at the end of the day, the general public, regardless of, our loyalties and our involvements, we all live in this country. So I don't think any government really comes into play wanting to send a country spiraling down. And it's just, like Lihini said, a lot of blunt promises. But I can tell you now, under the Yahapalne government, you said a lot of promises were made, but we are only seeing the results now. I believe in the justice system as a lawyer, but justice may be slow, but it's sure. And save but a few, we are certainly convinced of a lot of matters in terms of the positions we have taken, opposing or supporting those decisions. And I can't comment on them because they're presently before court. But having said that, if you look at half of these things, the investigations commenced, the papers were drafted, and in fact, the advice of the Attorney General's Department had been sought well before this government had come in. So, in that regard, it is just absolutely wonderful, fortunate timing on the part of the government in respect of all these cases that are going forward. But I do agree with you, there are lots of allegations, there are lots of cases that have not reached court yet, that are still in investigative stages. And I will say this, I've said it on this show again, wrongdoers must be prosecuted, they must be punished, Shayar. I am a citizen of this country. I have seen the wrongs that have been done. I'm seeing a lot of people being punished. They're not my kith and kin. And I am fully in support of the justice system bringing all those that have done wrong to book.
In the event of your leader, or the SLPP leader, the national organizer, Namal Rajapaksa being arrested, or being, sent to prison, what is the succession plan?
Well, you're the one usually asking questions like that. And see, if you had asked it, it would have been far more blunt. See, that was a nice way of asking me the question, Shalan. No, so Shihad, the line of succession, and in terms of the overall move forward, as you know, I am a member of the Samasamaja Party, and we are a strong supporter of the SLPP. And the alliance in its entirety, as well as the working committee of the SLPP, will take the relevant decisions. And I have to just say this, no matter what we think, Sri Lankan politics has always taken a turn within the last 6 months of a governmental regime. So what the future holds is very difficult to say. Right now, the LSSP is fully committed in supporting the SLPP, and we consider ourselves well part of the SLPP and as the SLPP. And in the event that any allegations are proven to be true, any arrests made, I believe that the leadership, provided it is being procedurally, constitutionally, statutorily followed and correct in nature, I believe that we will accept what comes. I mean, we have not defaulted on anything. We have not, denied bluntly anything that has happened. We have accepted that certain members of the SLPP who are no longer members of the SLPP have. We also had incidents where certain members of parliament, former members of parliament who are still very active members of the SLPP have gone to court. I believe Shalan may have also been in court during those couple of days where certain things were said and, allegations were accepted and said, yes, we admit and we concede to this application. And that was a moment of pride for, young politicians and lawyers who are part of the SLPP. So, slow but sure.
Lihini,
just one question, Shihar, if I could. Now, I'm just, since we spoke about democracy within parties, and of course today's topic of discussion, checks and balances in Sri Lanka and Sri Lanka's democracy. What is the procedure? Because we don't see too often, constitutions of parties, and like you said, now at least manifestos are out there for people to read. I agree with you. Some people don't read. But
fantastic that you do,
that doesn't mean they shouldn't read it.
No,
they should read it.
Absolutely.
But of course, when it comes to constitutions of political parties, that's a little bit harder to get your hands on.
Absolutely.
How does the selection of leadership, since Shihar raised the question of succession in the event of some incidents, how does that work? How does the appointment of the leader of the SLPP work?
Shalan, I have to be very honest, I'm not
very
well versed with the constitution of the SLPP.
Okay. There's also a clarification sent in by one of our viewers with regard to a previous statement that you made. You said the members of the UNP select the leader of the UNP. According to this viewer, that is wrong.
Okay.
He says that the leader of the United National Party selects the working committee, and the working committee selects the leader. So, sine qua non, you scratch my back,
I scratch your back. Well, Shalan, I think that's a wonderful question because, like I said, I'll just quickly say this, I'm not too familiar with the SLPP constitution or the UNP constitution. I am very familiar with the LSSP constitution, and while we have an entire party that selects the central committee, and the central committee and the Politburo then votes for the general secretary, who is in essence the party leader, I will say that even party selections and elections in this country are very much like the national elections in this country, where once voted, there is a short period and then there's a massive shift in the very people that appoint you there. So I think that there is a shift necessary in terms of the mindset of our people also that is needed. Because like I said, I'm not in this for the money or the power or anything. I could, very well live very comfortably, but some of us are genuinely in this for public service, and I can wholeheartedly say that both my brother and sister here sitting next to me are very much along those very lines, regardless of the fact that we may have problems with certain members of our own parties as well as in each other's parties. But that is why we need to proceed with identifying people towards the future that are not identified as the party, but as the individual.
Dimitra, what's the latest on the party's court case?
So there is a discussion.
Yeah, there is a court case. Basically, their leader cannot, basically operate as a leader.
No, he can. He can. He just cannot function as the general secretary at a point in time where an election is being called. But there is a Supreme Court determination that was given in that regard for it to be resolved in the district court. The district court case is still pending, and we have moved court to grant us time to consider a settlement amongst both factions so that we can reach a consensus. And that consensus also involves our membership and continued support of the SLPP, with one faction in support and one faction not in support. So those are all factors we have to consider.
Shreya, if I just may pose that same question to Lihini. Lihini, how does the election of the leader in the SJB work? Genuinely curious.
So again, same thing. Working committee selects, and also we have the party convention, and the party convention, then the entire office bearers of the party are being selected by. It's proposed and seconded at the
but there's no vote per se.
No vote per se. So it's consensus.
Okay, so is that a viable model for Sri Lanka? Now I know in the United States they have their caucuses, and I'm not saying that's a perfect system, but we always need to strive to be better. Now, since you were a member of the United National Party, you saw how that system worked. It really didn't work. That's why you all broke away from it. What has changed from the selection of the leader, because that was your principal issue? Like, there was no other issue with the United National Party. It was just that we need new leadership. So how has that process of selecting, appointing and endorsing a new leader changed in comparison to the United National Party? How has it changed?
So it's like this, the primary objective of forming SJB was, UNP was stagnant for a certain period of time, and we all know the reason why SJB
and the leadership didn't change.
And the leadership didn't change, and then, I think at that very particular point, breaking away did make sense. There was momentum, and even politically it did make sense. But in political parties, I also personally believe that there needs to be democracy. There needs to be more transparency in the way it is it's operating. I think this is not just across my party. It's common across all political parties, even including the ruling party. What we see out there, we hear certain things, but actually the way it operates, everywhere there is question. So I think we all have our expectations on what a leadership in any party should be. We young people have different aspirations in terms of the leaders that we aspire to be. So again, changes come from within. There are certain things that we can push for. There are certain things we can change. But people in leadership also must change. So it's a what do you call that? You have to talk to yourself and dependency, it's a self-check at the end of the day. Beat the UNP leader, beat any leader. I mean, if you have been there for a certain period of time, I mean, you
Are you
have
referring
to
to
make.
Sajid Premadasa?
No, I mean, no, I'm not making any specific names or anything, etc. I think if you look at Mr. Sajid Premadasa's context, I mean, there has been certain accusations, but I would give him credit because he has managed to hold fort despite of it all, and still being the opposition leader. I mean, in politics, one thing I commend SJB is that SJB as a party has always said the truth to the people. We have not hoodwinked the people. Mr. Premadasa has always stick to his principles and commented. The people of this country has never been have never listened to what the SJB had said. I mean, you beat economics, beat Dr. Harsha, Iran, Kabir back in the day said on the economy, whatever we had said, it's always been right. It's always been right. But people of this country, including everybody, never gave thought to. Recently I asked this question.
Just one clarification. You said, I would agree to the fact that a majority of the SJB has always been truthful to the people, but we did have individuals like, say, Tisattanayaka, who said that if the NPP comes into power, there won't be another Candy Perehara and all of that, and I believe action was filed in the district court and the matter was settled, I believe.
I don't want to.
So there are members of your party.
I mean, at the end of the day, there
are political statements.
There are political statements that are being made in political, which not just in our party but in across every party. It's there. So
probably less in your party. Definitely less.
Yeah. So, but I think one of the questions I had is in this country, people have voted for the blues, the maroons, now to the pinks. But why aren't people voting for the Greens? This is a question I've had since 1994. Okay, 2015 to 2019. Again, it was not UNP. It was not the Greens or the Yellows. It was a coalition at that time. Why can't the people of this country read the green policies? What the Greens always talk about, the liberal policies, how to drive this economy forward. I mean, we're talking. People of this country always want the green policies, but they go and vote the others.
But you know what the best part is? The best part is, Lihini, the best part is, Lihini, even according to what you say, even if the people didn't vote for the Greens, the Maroons certainly did.
No, but
the Maroons voted for the biggest Green.
When I say Greens, I mean SJB, Greens, Yellows, all of us together.
Actually, Shalan, just to add to what Lihini said, in fact, from 1994, one of the main promises that has been made by every single successive government, including this government, is the
executive president.
which is the very reason that the Green has not come to power is because of those repercussions, and that is the frontline runner at any election. So,
and I want to say this also: people vote for the other parties expecting the green policies. They voted for NPP hoping that they will run the country in the liberal way. They voted for Mahinda Rajapaksa hoping they will run. But then, this is what I'm saying. We have since we're talking about checks and balances, all that, let's talk about the voter also. The voter in this country, we also must question how responsibly have the voter behaved. It is the voter being, hoodwinked, the voter being emotional, the voter not being scientifically led is one of the reason.
Goes back to what I said. We need to change the mentality of how our people don't get hoodwinked by politicians.
The same thing with even the US.
Yeah. The majority.
They are emotional. Voters are emotional.
But then, political parties also have the right to say the truth to the people.
Since Dimitra brought this up,
yes,
right?
Dimitra,
now you're talking about playing on the emotions of the general public. Now, recently we had this incident where, not incident actually,
right
people are going to meet their Apache at Vijayarama. Of course, we saw. So now, many people who went there, including the political representatives, claim that this is not a political stunt. And then one of the political representatives who were comparing almost at that event said that, we've been planning this for a month and finally it's culminated in this. So now, Dimitra, you're saying that people mustn't think on their emotions. People mustn't be hoodwinked on their emotions. And then your party or the party that you're in alliance with proceeds to hoodwink the people on their emotions.
No, that's not a correct statement, Shalan, for the very simple reason that you have to understand, when what was meant by, this is an event we had planned, was several people, where you have to understand that the former President Rajapaksa has quite a fixed agenda, right? There's a lot of matters that he has to attend to, and when there is very limited time for to allow people to come and actually, just spend time and just, discuss things that are not of political relevance. So these people are individuals who have come to pay respects, not to discuss their woes. They are genuinely people who cared and wanted to see him. We don't see that happening with any other presidents, right? We don't see people visiting them, by the busloads or, large quantities of people visiting or any events. Like I said, goes back to the privileges. So, no, I don't think that's a correct statement. The event in itself, yes, but in terms of hoodwinking, each unto his own. If somebody wants to mislead the public by, some cheap stunt, then down with the people who actually fall for those cheap stunts. I mean, I personally wouldn't subscribe to it, so I'm just saying. My view of that event is there were people who genuinely wanted to come and pay their respects to President Rajapaksa and spend some time with him. So
and there were people who genuinely wanted to turn that into a political stunt.
And they did. And they did.
So, my question is, Dimitra, now, I mean, I do understand that you're a young politician in the party, and I know that with seniority and all of that, there are so many barriers and there's only so much change that you can bring about.
True.
But what I'm saying is, Dimitra, shouldn't political parties be more responsible?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I fully agree, Shalan. And I believe that there is, both parties that I'm involved with, in terms of the LSSP as well as the SLPP.
Even the SJB, the UNP, the NPP.
I'm not going to, discuss the other parties because I'm looking at this from my perspective on your question as a young politician. I fully agree. Administration, and that is one place I believe the incumbent government managed to come into government because their structure of administration, their propaganda, their arrangements, everything was at the point pretty meticulous. It's only as of late and formation of government that certain channels have gone all over the place. But I'm fully in agreement with you. There needs to be accountability.
But what is stopping our political parties from really breaking that glass ceiling? What is stopping?
Goes back to exactly what you said. Events that could be genuine events which are used to hoodwink the general public and voters. And
is it done to score brownie points?
Absolutely. Certain things are done, Shalan, to score brownie points with leadership as well as with the voter. And something I have always stood by is leaders will come and leaders will go. Right? We need to stand by our own personal freedoms. I need to be able to look my mother in the face and tell her, I'm your son and this I have not messed up. I need to, I'm not a father yet, but someday I will have children and I would want my children to look up at their father and think, I'm proud of him. So I would think it's up to personal preferences and personalities. Integrity
matters.
Which is why I said, I don't see eye to eye with a lot of people in Barath's party. I don't see eye to eye with a majority of people in Lihini's party. But having said that, I do have a lot of respect for both of them because I see eye to eye with them and I see them as very respectable people.
But now your two parties are in alliance.
No.
The SJB and the SLPP.
No, there's no alliance. There's no alliance. We're all friends.
We are opposition.
We are all friends.
No, I'm saying at the local government bodies, at the Pradesh Sabha.
I want to bring this question.
I
want to bring this question to Lihini. Now, you are the SJB is the largest opposition in this country, and you have a responsibility to keep the government in check, right? What have you done so far since the last presidency in terms of changing the policies that could have an adverse impact on the public?
Changing the policies of the country or the party?
The country. I mean, whatever the NPP government has brought.
So, I want to say this, in Parliament when the certain bills are being proposed, SJB has always spoken their stance. Obviously, Dr. Harsha De Silva is the chairman of the COF, and then he brings certain changes. I believe when the ENIC was brought in, he made certain statements with regards to that. When government spending, then on the COP we make certain observations. So wherever that is required, and also Mr. Premadasa on sections 27, he raises certain valid questions in Parliament, and then there are responses that have been given. So I mean, when you see parliamentary debates, SJB has played their role. I mean, it's just that certain things are featured in media, but I think SJB has been a formidable opposition in Parliament, whistleblowing wherever and whenever required. And not just that, also we've not played the role of the conventional opposition. As I said earlier, what is the role of the opposition? Opposition in this country has always been to block the government, to make governing difficult. What did JVP do when they were? What you saw the opposition as a person like Anura Kumar. You want the opposition leader also to be somebody like Anura Kumar Dissanayake when he was in the opposition, who will always talk negative, who will always say the wrong thing. But Sajith Premdas is a constructive leader, I would say, where when it's good he speaks. When the government, like for example, when the IGP vote was brought in, yes, we voted in favor of it, because that should happen. And also with regards to, now we have always questioned the government's policies. Now, you, for example, Easter Sunday attack, they said that they will bring justice. Now, why is it delayed? Then also when the instances where Auditor General was appointment was questioned, I think in the Constitutional Council, Mr. Premadasa and Kabir Shinde, they took a certain stance. And I mean, I can mention many times, recently we brought in a no confidence motion, which is to be taken up. And also now, for example, this I want to talk about this energy minister's issue right now.
Lihini, since you brought up the no confidence motion,
yeah.
Now, on that point, with regard to a no confidence motion against the deputy minister, who was the commander of the northern province at the time. Now, I believe it was SJB was part of the, or senior member of the SJB was part of the team that filed petitions in the Supreme Court that resulted in the Supreme Court holding former President Maithripala Sirisena, the former Defence Secretary, and several other high-ranking police officials guilty of not really preventing this and having to pay. So at the time, why wasn't, if there is legitimate allegation against the current Deputy Minister of Defence, why wasn't he also included in that petition if there was a legitimate allegation? And this on the face of it, at least to a reasonable person, it seems like an afterthought.
But at least they brought in at this point, I would say. Better late than never.
So, no. I mean, on an afterthought, I don't think is that really good? Because if there was a legitimate allegation, because I do admit the SJB filed these petitions along with the Cardinal, His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjit, and that yielded a good result.
Yeah.
But without naming this person, so does that mean, so what is the stance? Is it any senior officials of the military who were at any point at the time?
I cannot comment because none of us were part of the legal team that filed those, and on what basis the individuals.
So we will have to wait for the debate,
debate and all that, and I think the no confidence motion must be taken up for debate. I mean, the government should not
put it down on a technicality.
Exactly, and that technicality does not hold water, because I mean there are statements that have been made. There is no such thing that it has to be brought in for a cabinet minister. I mean, then you can't even bring no confidence motions against the opposition leader, which has been brought in the past, because he's no longer an ex-co member, cabinet member. So I mean, there's no water for that. But I want to talk about this whole energy minister. Now there's an allegation against him. Why can't the president walk the talk? Why can't the president request an energy minister?
When you say allegation, I think it was a paper article that was published, saying that the Bribery Commission is mulling over the possibility of filing charges against the energy minister. So, as to how appropriate it would be to debate that in length, because I don't have the details. If you do,
there is an 8 million
according to the paper article.
According to the article, and also there was a letter that was issued that there were about 8 charges against him, and this is while he was in.
But there are no charges against him, in the sense no official charges have been filed.
No official, but then I mean, what is this NPP back in the day said? We will not appoint anybody into any position if they have even a allegation. That was what I mean.
These are pretty heavy allegations.
Yeah, and they portray themselves as holier than thou. So they must, stick by it. Even if there's a slightest allegation, they must act proactively, not reactively. Now, even look at Ranwala's incident. It's washed under the carpet. And so now there is and this particular energy minister, he holds a certain position, and I also want to ask now, he was from 2005 he was he was appointed to that position by President Andrakumar Dissanayake when he was the agricultural minister. I have managed the production of imports of the fertilizer corporation in 2004. So then from 2015, then also he was in 2015 he was removed due to corruption allegations. So when Andrakumar Dissanayake president appointed him, made him a nationalist MP, didn't he know all these issues? So he knew it, and
no, this is definitely going to be a litmus test for the government.
Exactly. And also I want to bring up Mr. Vasanta Samarasinghe's incident as well. There's presently a case that is at Mount Lavinia, and also there is also an allegation against creating forged documents for a property acquisition of 3.6 million. And against him, and as well as Mahinda Jayasinghe. So where is Anurakumara Dissanayake president? Why can't he walk the talk? These are things that he must, if he is really concerned about setting that precedent, saying, you know, my government is pure, the purest government that has come to governing this country. He must, and everybody are rogues. No, all of us are rogues, including, you know, we have not done any justice by this country, according to Mr. Andrakumara Dissanayake. So he must first walk the talk, and even if there's a slightest allegation, he must let them step down. Why is he not doing this? Now these are questions I think, you know, media also should question.
Definitely. Lihini, just one question. Lihini, in the eventuality, now I'm just foreseeing something or predicting maybe, in the eventuality that proper action is not taken, these individuals don't step down, they're not put out of office, in the eventuality that a government under the SJB comes into power, would the situation be different? Because Sri Lankan people, that's the aspiration of the Sri Lankan people at the end of the day. Now, I know we like to look at Japan. For example, there are incidents in Japan where even transport minister either stepped down after the train was delayed for several minutes. For 4 minutes he stepped down. I mean, that's the kind of democracy that Sri Lankan people aspire to be, and there's no surprise there. We are, after all, the oldest democracy in Southeast Asia, and it's only right that we achieve at least that kind of democracy in this formidable age of our democracy. So would that be the case?
It has to be the case.
It has to be the case, and you will push for that.
Exactly. I think people like young politicians, not just me, there are many young politicians in this political party that has aligned with SJB, because it's for SJB's values and for what Mr. Premadasa stands for. If Mr. Premadasa is also going to be a leader that doesn't walk the talk, for him to come and say one thing in the campaign stage and then implement something, we will call him out. If not, I mean, at the end of the day, we are accountable to the people of this country. I always
say the people who face the music.
Exactly. And then leaders are temporary custodians. They're not here forever. What has happened to this country is, I mean, sorry to say, the SLPP has governed this country. They governed this country for the past many years thinking that they will be here forever. I mean, today we are facing all these things, the bankruptcy, they are responsible for it. But I mean, that is why people wanted a system change, and any leader that comes, that follows, must follow. Even Mr. Premadasa, I think, you know, in our manifestos that we have put out, in our blueprints that we have put out, we have even bring in certain controls, how we will strengthen the CIABOC, how we are the first to talk about having an independent prosecutor. Then how about digitalization? These discussions with this government is implementing were discussed back in the day in 2015. Checks and balances, which we are talking, how checks and balances can be brought in effectively with proper systematic change. Now that is what Mr. Andrakumara Dissanayake should do. But right now, I mean, so in an administration of Mr. Premadasa, definitely he will have to do it. If not, you know, the people of this country will also ask him to go. You know, leadership is not forever.
We have time for one more question.
Lihini, given the issues you are talking, is the opposition approach of only alerting the government enough? Like, for instance, the Easter Sunday attack, right? I mean, you can alert it for a long time, but you won't see any action, right? So is that enough?
Not just alerting. I think we have gone to court in many instances. I think we are the only party that went to court, and even this IGP's issue, then declaring the country's bankruptcy, where P.B. Jayasundara, Basil Rajapaksa, that they were responsible for the economic debacle. All those cases SJB has filed.
I'm talking about under this government. Is alerting alone enough?
Alerting is one thing, going and filing action is one thing, then taking to the streets whenever that is required is one thing, educating the people is another thing. I mean, there is a series of actions that the opposition will take at the due time. But right now, the government must be, we all agree that the government must be given a certain time period to now they have been 1 year in office. If they are not performing, we will certainly take we will take action. We will
One last question.
do the role of the opposition, which we are doing.
Is there a succession plan for Premadasa in the event of his stepping down?
I cannot answer. I mean, there is a working committee in the party, and there are members in the party. There will be, I mean, there's democracy within the party, so the party will take necessary decisions at the right time.
Thank you very much to all our panelists and of course to Shri Haranis. We now move to closing statements. Starting off, we have Barath Arullsamy from the Democratic People's Front. Barath, much was discussed here today on checks and balances in Sri Lanka's democracy. Based on everything that was spoken of today, what do you think is a realistic expectation that the people can have when we speak of democracy in Sri Lanka, but moreover, democracy within political parties in the future, especially given the change that you spoke of in your opening statement that happened in 2022 with the Aragale?
The expectation of the younger generation of the country is transparency and accountability. So the democratic practices we are following today is like, need to be reformed and, updated into the present state. So now we are very happy up until early 2020. The youth participation in the democratic practices and political participation was much limited. Now the younger generation is more actively involved in decision making and democratic practices. So this is a good sign for democracy. And also in the party perspective, we should understand one important element. This country is, even though has faced a lot of elections or a lot of insurgencies, conflicts and civil war, the root cause of this entire problem is like the communal harmony and the reconciliation. If this fails, the country will fail in socially and also economically. So all political parties must understand before pointing fingers at each other whether they are capable of doing that, whether the history which had taught us what is the root cause, are we going to go with this for another successive years. So, I am looking at all political parties, not only the regional parties, also the national parties and minority parties are, they are on constant reform and listening to the people. As I told you, from top to bottom, it is now bottom to top. So, that is a positive sign of democracy. And also, as I comparatively in the changing world order, we must understand these democratic practices must echo the geopolitical tensions, and also we should understand how the internal governance from the grassroots level, from a town, from a city, from a village up until to the entire demography of Sri Lanka is totally participated and included. So this will be done only by giving equal opportunities and equity among all the societies only. So the democracy is fundamentally built on the belief of each individual citizen of this country that his or her voice will be heard in the upper houses. If not, the entire democratic value will lose. And also when it comes to minorities, and especially in the Malayaga Tamil community, we being the government in various stages have gone through and accommodated few demands, but there are a lot to be done. We have done few, but there are a lot to be done. This government, our people have given in their democratic practices a big mandate for this government to deliver what our predecessors couldn't deliver. If this is not delivered by this government, the repercussion will be much, much bigger. So keeping that in mind, we being an opposition party, an alliance with the opposition of the country, we are always ready to support and guide and suggest the ruling government in relation for reconciliation, nation building and building the gaps between the communities and make this country a great country in the world.
Thank you very much, Barath Arullsamy from the Democratic People's Front. We now move to Lihini Fernando, attorney at law from the Samagi Jana Balavegya. Lihini, again, similar question to you. What is a realistic expectation for democracy within political parties that the people in Sri Lanka can have? Because, like we discussed during the program, I mean, the constitutions of political parties aren't really public documents per se. I don't even know where I can find it. So, as far as democracy within a party is concerned, now as much as we are concerned about democracy within a country, it is, as we discussed and established already on the program, it's very much reliant on democracy within a political party. And we have seen how the lack of democracy within a political party can result in the downfall of that political party and in the country as a whole. You have experienced it firsthand. So, Lihini, what is a realistic expectation from your standpoint that the people can have to see some sort of democracy in political parties? You claim that there is a lot of democracy inside the SJB. I don't see it. I don't see it. I don't know that there is no democracy or there is very little democracy in the SJB, but I don't see it, Lihini. So what's a realistic expectation that the people can have?
See, it's like this. There are two things. Political parties finally, based on who they give nominations to, finally determine who gets elected to office. And who gets elected to office. If you give
office of the leader?
No, office basically public office. Okay. So if you give nominations to the wrong people, corrupt people with allegations.
People will place trust in the party, vote for them, they'll get into office.
We've seen that happening for many years for trends. I mean, even however much you talk about the present government, they also have given nominations to certain individuals which are not acceptable. So if you are to meet the expectations of the people, people in this country have a certain expectation when it comes to their leaders. They want honest people with integrity, people who will not rob state money, but who will act in the best interests of the taxpayer. So for that to happen, political parties at the end of the day must also give nominations to the right people. So this is at the end of the day, Shalan, it is a vicious cycle that you and I are talking about politics in this country. Due to these reasons, we can say that this country that you and I are in today is also in this particular situation because of the wrong decisions that have been made by political parties throughout the existence. Again, at the end of the day, politics is all about power. How do you get power? In the shortest, the quickest possible way. It is all power centric. It is not about doing the right thing by the people. I'm just not talking about my party alone. I'm talking in general context. So I think leaders of this country, whichever the party may be, have the responsibility to act in the best interests of the country, not just only when they are elected to office, but when they are also in the opposition and also when they are running their parties in terms of who they give nominations to, how they manage their party structures. It is a process. And I think people of this country over the years have spoken. And also, again, there's a responsibility for the people of this country also to come forward into politics. People expect change, but they're not willing to act for change. They have aspirations when it comes to their leaders. They say, my leader has to be this. But if you go and ask the people, do you want to come into politics? Do you want to come and serve the people? People don't want to do that. They have expectations. So I think, at the end of the day, this particular government, they have got a massive mandate. They can make these changes. They can put this country in the right direction. I mean, that is what we also want. We also want to do politics in a country where they put the right checks and balances and right controls, which the NPP government has, which the people of this country gave them the mandate to, which I sadly say, which they are not doing it. I want to say that 1 year down the line, 21st September 2024, they came to power versus what they promised versus what they are delivering. It's worlds apart. So it is up to the government to get their act together. It is not today. What you and I see in Parliament is rhetoric. It's speeches. They are talking as if they are in the opposition. They're not talking as if they are in the ruling party, which is saddening. I mean, I can tell you this. I'm a council member. I sit in the Moratuwa Municipal Council. And when we question the mayor, who is the NPP mayor, the responses that they give, their lack of experience is appalling. We worry. I mean, I want to say this. Recently, Mr. Ravi Karunanayake, yesterday, I believe in Parliament, spoke about money printing. He asked questions about money printing, and then the government denied money printing. They have printed money of 1.4 trillion. Yes, there is a certain amount of money that requires to be printed, but is it done in the right context?
But then, subsequent to the new monetary law that was passed in Sri Lanka, when you say the government prints money, is that a correct statement?
No. There is governments are allowed to print money.
No,
but
not the government. It no longer can. According to my knowledge of the law and how this functions, the government cannot make the executive decision to print money.
It is in line with the central bank.
The central bank with the massive independence that has been given to the central bank.
It is
I think even Dr. Harsha advocated for a certain amount of this independence being given to the central bank.
I mean, it was
and that independence was given. So subsequent to that, I think that was the point of the government where they said that we didn't print money. It was not our decision.
But no, then there is also, they can't deny the fact that money was not printed. That is what I'm saying. When Mr. Ravi Karunanayake said the government denies printing money despite there being evidence, that's what I want to say. The government of this country has the right to do justice by the people, to do the right thing by the people. I mean, that's why they came. Now, going back to my point again, the people of this country gave them the mandate to do these particular changes. They can't come back and say, look, we will take time. This is this. I mean, we see a postal strike that is happening. We see the state workers getting on the road. We see teachers coming. They must find solutions to the problems. They must give substantive answers, but we are not seeing that. So it is time for this government to implement those controls. It's not about talking anymore. And even as Dimitra pointed out, where is the constitutional amendments? Where is the new constitution that they promised that they are going to bring? Where is the answers to the ethnic question? I mean, even the first time in this country, the entire map became one color except for the Batticaloa district, and then the people of the north had faith in this government. I mean, where is it? The Cardinal keeps asking justice for the Easter attacks. Where is it? We don't want, I mean, at the end of the day, you and I are citizens of this country. We don't want repeatedly governments failing. Yes, I as a political party member can say, okay, fine, we will be very happy and good that, we will be able to come to power. But that is not the objective. They must deliver on what they promise, and the country must move forward. So, at the end of the day, I think it is time for the government to get their act together and evolve from stories, evolve from lies, evolve from hoodwinking, and evolve from arrogance. It's not about being arrogant, and it's not about deny. It's okay to be humble and admit if they go wrong and work together.
Thank you very much, Lihini Fernando, attorney at law from the Samagi Jana Balawegya. Last and certainly not least, we have attorney at law Dimitra Abeysekara from the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna. Dimitri, now with regards to democracy within the SLPP, I would repeat the same thing that I said about the SJB. I haven't seen an SLPP constitution. I don't see democracy in the SLPP. I don't know, I could be wrong, I could be right. But against such a backdrop, and I'm pretty sure the general public would agree with me when it comes to optics, democracy within political parties in Sri Lanka is not at an optimal level on that front. So Dimitra, what is a realistic expectation that the general public can have when it comes to democracy within political parties, at least within the next 5 years, at the next election cycle?
Thank you very much, attorney at law, Shalan. Shalan, on that question, I will say democracy is, I believe it was Aristotle who feared democracy, because he said, much like tyranny where it's only one person, democracy is just a whole group of people in agreement with one view. And I believe that the change in the voter mentality plays a huge role, because if you look at it from 2015 onwards, we're looking at a stagnant pool that changes its policies. Based on what Lihini also said, there is no longer a party-loyal voter base. It is now an independent voter base that votes for the person, right? And I don't think if a party is unable or a government is unable to get their promises in order, I don't think we will see a 10-year government for a very, very, very long time because of that change in the voter mentality. Prior to addressing your question, I will say the incumbent government is failing to address a lot of RTIs under the act that was brought in 2015 on the basis of Section 5 refusal under Section 5 of the Act, which gives the reasons for refusing it, which leads to a lack of information to the general public. And the information that is given is sensationalized to a point where, you know, the smallest thing like a bus on a route or a tap or, you know, filling up a roadway is sensationalized.
Dimitra,
as if
what kind of information is denied? You're talking about the agreements with India, or what are you talking about?
No, actually, Shalan, there are a couple of ongoing court cases for which I have personally put forward RTIs, and I have been... And
so it's in the Court of Appeal?
No. I've made the first appeal.
Application, okay. So and they've been denied?
Yeah, and then the second appeal has gone to the commission, but I don't know if I'll see it through because it's not entirely vital information to the case, and I need to file those cases within time. Then it also goes to the JVP, which forms the major component of the NPP, or the minor component rather, where their party leader, Somamansa Amarasena, also was party leader from 1990 up until 2014, and it was only due to ill health that he stepped down and retired from politics. And then he also broke away because he lost control. So I fully agree with you. There is a necessity for parties to put controls in place in terms of the appointment and succession. But like I said, if most of these leaders can hold on for 30 plus years, and including the incumbent government's party, and then the fact that President Anukumara Disanayake himself contested in 2019 and got only 418,000 votes. And before that, in 2015, he cast aspersions at President Rajapaksa and said if he had lost a presidency, he would never come forward for any election, let alone to parliament. But then he did that, and which is how he is still president, because he did that. So I don't think anyone in the SLPP is hard bent on holding on for 20 years in the leadership, right? And the fact that we have a young leadership proves that we will see through to a proper administration, because at the end of the day, a leadership is only as strong as its foundations and as strong as its team. So the SLPP, the Alliance, we're all building up a new team, and hopefully the mistakes of our predecessors can be overlooked as much as the mistakes of the predecessors of the incumbent government.
Okay, thank you very much, Dimitra Abeysekara from the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna. Thank you very much, Shihar Aniz, our journalist, for asking all the right questions. Of course, much was discussed about checks and balances in Sri Lankan democracy, and we focused quite a bit on democracy within political parties. But what keeps on repeating at every election cycle within every political party is the fact that it is always easy to fight for one's principles and very hard to live up to them. Thank you very much for tuning in to another episode of Face the Nation. Until we meet again, take care and God bless.